That's good.
Can I go?
All right. It is Friday. I believe the date is May 10th. I'm Dr. Brown. I'm here with John. John has graciously agreed to tell his story and answer maybe a couple of other questions I might have for him. And I should say before we begin, again, this project is really thanks to donations from other people, and I'm going to name the person because I wish it could be me. I wish I was a billionaire and I could take care of everybody, but the first person to donate, and since you're the first person I'm talking to, was my sister, Karen, and so I'm going to say that all of this, the food and a little bit of compensation I can give you, and I wish it was more, is really coming from my sister, Karen. So there's that, and really I've just asked John to tell his story for a couple of reasons which I think will become clear as we go on. So John, whenever you're ready.
Okay, we can maybe start with the first, I guess maybe question that you had. You know, maybe we can go back and start there.
Sure. So I met John at a church at the food pantry, and we were talking about bicycles and bicycling. And so this project is really, I'm riding my bicycle across the country, as I told John, to raise awareness and do some advocacy for people who are suffering from poverty, people who are hungry and homeless, and we were talking to a guy who had a Community Bikes shirt on, and John, I believe you said words to the effect of it was that program that I think you said saved your life,
Yep.
or words to that effect.
Yeah.
So can you tell us why or how Community Bikes saved your life?
Our Community Bikes, they have a service, a community service, that they provide bikes for the community for anyone that wants or needs one, free, usually a couple of days a week. So I had heard about them when I first entered rehab, maybe actually my third trip, but when I entered rehab I heard about it my last time, 2012-13, and I couldn't drive because I had a DWI. So hey, great, I can go get a bike, you know, and get around. So that's what I did. And it just went from there. So when I needed bike repairs, it just saved me, you know, I didn't have to spend $80 an hour for bike labor. So from that day, or from that, you know, year 2013 till now, 90% of my transportation has been by bicycle, so I would never be able to have been I would never have been able to get back on my feet like I am now without our community bikes.
In fact, okay, so let me ask a follow-up question. So we were talking earlier about how great programs are in cities like Rochester, where we are right now, but that, you know, for somebody who's having trouble finding money for food or something, paying $3 for a bus or more for an Uber or Lyft, or certainly car expenses, that becomes an obstacle. Could you tell me a little bit about your experience with transportation and as an obstacle?
Sure. Real quick, I'm going to do a cut here because you can do the audio, but speak up just a little bit.
Okay.
So the trouble or the difficulty that I faced was definitely cost, because getting out of rehab or being homeless or just being, you know, even mental health situations that prevent you from working. I had those issues, so I was low on funds. You only get so much from DSS. There's certain restrictions on who can get a bus pass, how many visits you have to have. So with all of those things that are tied to that, I didn't get a bus pass at first, so paying for the bus was impossible. So that's where the bike, so I said that 90%, where it was like, okay, I have to get here, I can't pay for the bus, well, how am I going to get it? It's either walk or bike. So I took the bicycle, and that's how I started making all of my appointments. I also have, you know, some anxiety about riding the bus, and also with Medicabs, you know, just not having that control of driving. So that kind of prohibits me sometimes as well, you know, and I know several other people it does. So it's just, you know, having a bicycle was such a, you know, I'll say godsend. You know, I've always rode my bicycle, but it never became as important until I, went into rehab for that third time, because also I had a vehicle. Everything was right there. So I lost my vehicle, and then I got my bicycle about 5-6 months later, and then it went from there. So the bus can be, can just be impossible at times because you don't have enough money. So that's where that bike, my bikes have saved my life.
See, again, I've mostly through my work in Washington, D.C. and with the nonprofit, I became aware of transportation as an obstacle for people, but some of the stuff you just said, I had never thought of. And so that's the kind of things I think people need to hear.
If I can add this, as I said, I talked to my case manager recently, and I was, again, at my wit's end. And I told her, I said, you know what? I've really realized, that if you become homeless and you become poor enough, or if you are poor enough, if you have to rely on the bus as your main transportation, you will only reach a certain level of status in this country. There's just no way, if you're taking the bus to your job and having to pick up your child and into the doctor's appointment, you can only fit in so many things. So you can only reach a level of so high of income. And that income, I mean, just off the top of my head, maybe $30,000, maybe $40,000, maybe. And with all the bills and the economy, the way the situation is now, you're only going to reach maybe, working middle class. And so I was telling her, I said, it just seems impossible. I need to get, I was going for a loan or a student loan. Without that assistance, without that extra, I would be kind of like in this, subsidized housing and in this, certain income range, and I'll never have that ability to get out of my debt and to get, a stable home and to get out of the hood, I really just was at a point I realized, I was like, this is almost impossible. No, it's not even almost, it is. It is.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple follow-up questions, John, but because you've got my curiosity going. But as I said before we started the video, actually, I have to say, if I didn't mention it on video, that so I came here with just a cell phone, and John here had to hook me up with a tripod, microphones. So I am technologically deficient, and I was never on Facebook or social media until this project a few months ago. And really, I have a friend of mine, Ryan, out in California, who's doing the posting on Facebook. But this will be posted on Facebook and Instagram and some other places. I want to get your story out. So if I ask anything you don't want to answer, don't answer.
No problem. So let me just also take a second.
Okay.
If you wanted, we had talked about other days.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to, like do this, we could, if you had that other time, I would make that time and, bam.
Okay. See.
Your microphone, like hook them into your camera or to your phone really easily, and it would give you pristine audio. You could be mic'd up, I could be mic'd up. And it could be, if you're giving it to somebody else, if you have Dropbox or something to follow.
John, thank you very much. Okay, so you see, John, all that to say, thank you for helping me with the technology and this project.
Things trying to come together, like synergy and stuff, as it's supposed to happen. I'm a big believer in that. Things just happen and present themselves.
I'm getting chills, not because it's cool here, but I was just saying that to somebody the other day.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
now I've forgotten my train of thought, but
no. I was helping with technology.
Yeah, okay, and some follow-up questions, and I was saying all that to say, so again, if I'm going to ask probably some relatively personal questions, feel free to, so, because we'll get posted. Anyway, right, so you'd mentioned rehab, homelessness, so have you experienced actual homelessness?
Yeah. I was homeless in 2021. That's what you could say homeless, but there's also kind of homeless where you're sleeping on people's couches. A lot of youths are going through. They don't have a stable home, stable housing, so they're going from place to place. I've experienced that a couple of times in my life, but when I say really homeless is when I was in the shelter. I mean, I was outside for 2 days straight, and that was when, I say reality. I'm talking about the weight of it really set in. So then I went to the shelter, and I stayed in the shelter for about 4 or 5 months. And that was, I learned, that was just transformative. There's so many things in my life that have been, but people say kind of the transformative, but that right there was something that was just, it was worse than jail.
Okay, so can you expand on that for people? Because I don't think people who haven't spent time in shelters have an understanding.
Well, the first thing off my mind is worse than jail, because this shelter that I was in had a lot of transitional people. So there were people that just got out of prison for murder in 25 years, pedophiles, some very serious crimes, inmates. So I'm staying in a facility that's just like jail and prison, but doesn't have the safety. I can't go to my cell because I'm sleeping in the same pod, in the same area as 50 people. So knowing that someone just got out of prison for murder, they don't know how to live in society. They don't have those skills. They've been locked up since they were 18 years old. So it was sitting there. It just was like, you never know. I was there during a sexual assault. Happened in the shower. Kid gets taken out of there. So that's reality. I'm staying in, the jungle. It's what a lot of people call, jail in the hood or whatever. This is it. It's just ground central or ground zero. So I used to try to stay out of there as much as possible. But coming back to a place like that and having to sleep, I get a few hours sleep a night. I'm jumping up, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, just looking at people, because you never know when something's gonna happen. And it happened. I've seen people assaulted. Right, the guy right across from me. I can't remember if it was snoring, something so trivial. The guy says something back to him. Well, what are you gonna do about it? He stands up, punches him, and starts beating him up. So that's the environment. That's what I said, that the shelter is worse than jail. You got the CEO. Hey, CEO, I need a transfer. I need to get out of this pod, get to whatever, my safety, and that can happen. But where am I going to go? I'm in the shelter. I got nowhere else to go except for outside. And if I go to another shelter, it's the same thing. There was worse shelters than where I was at.
So people who are choosing to sleep outdoors as opposed to go to the shelters in part for these.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got anxiety, you got issues. I have my own trauma history where, even in the shelter, I have difficulty with sleeping, even in my own space, my own apartment. So coming into the shelter, you have these issues, and whoever it may be, it's a very difficult thing. I mean, like I said, it's worse than jail. You can leave, but what's the alternative? In jail, you have meals, you can go get a drink of water, you clean up, you got your own little spot. You can go to the bathroom in your cell, and you don't have to worry about getting sexually assaulted. In the shelter, it's not guaranteed. So, yeah, it's just it's the toughest thing I've ever. It's worse than jail.
Oh.
It really is.
Again, I recall. The media, in my opinion, hasn't done a bad job of keeping extreme poverty and homelessness and hunger in the news.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, we got an uptick in media focus on this issue when a young girl disappeared from a shelter and her body got found in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the level of security, the lack of security that you're talking about.
A guy got his head cut off here. Or almost off. Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah.
In one of the shelters?
In one of the shelters. One of the ones that DSS tried to make me go to, because there's different types of shelters. So the one I was at, it's like a quick one. And they try to figure the situation out, and then they try to place you somewhere else if you're not getting an apartment. So they're like, go to House of Mercy, which is cheaper because there's less supervision and stuff. And I'm like, nah, I'm filing an appeal with fair hearing, it's called. Because I'm not going over there because it's already bad enough here and it's less secure there. Within a few months, the guy sneaks in a machete, they have an altercation, words or whatever, the guy comes over and cuts his head off. I mean, I don't know if it was a clean, but it's wrong. So that's the lack of safety and security.
See, again, I think getting the stories out from the people who have experienced it, I think is important. Because again, I've spent time in shelters as a volunteer, but
right.
I didn't know all this.
And that's when the media is like, oh, it's, if it bleeds, it leads. Oh yeah, this story and hyping that up, but they don't really cover, just the ins and outs of it, of what it really, because that doesn't, it doesn't bleed.
Right. If you're not getting your head cut off, it's not newsworthy.
Or if you're not doing something, they have a homeless person does something, by all means, we're going to cover that, but cover the journey, who wants to hear that, that kind of story? that's what I take. I used to be in media, and that's kind of where it's at. It's more sensational. You know, that's the stuff that we talk about, the craziness.
All right, so I want to come back to you being in
Yeah,
media, but you had also mentioned rehab.
Yeah.
Actually, close old friend of mine who is now sober for almost 2 years, I believe, and has supported this particular project a lot. He's one of the sponsors. Suffered. Another close friend of mine is recovering. I don't think there's any. I think most of us have realized that that's a disease that there's no shame in that. But I'm curious, in your case, and from what you've seen, so a lot of us, apparently in the nature nurture argument, a lot of us are predisposed apparently to substance abuse, but there are environmental triggers. In your opinion, is it bad choices and then those become behaviors that turn into substance abuse, or is it more triggers and trauma that turn into substance abuse, or does the substance abuse cause the trauma? You follow what I'm saying? In other words, is it that people get, in some cases, I mean, everybody has a different story. Sometimes it's a medical bill and a car bill and you're homeless, or what have you. But would you say that it's the trauma that causes the substance abuse, or the substance abuse that then causes the trauma, or what?
So I have this conversation with my best friend all the time, and I'm just going to say it frankly, since he has no exposure to it really, he feels if addicts didn't make the choices they made, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in. And then it was like, all right, we're going to sit down about this, Corey. Because more than one thing can be true, more than two things, more than three things can be true at the same time. So I can start out experimenting, and nobody consciously sits down when we're all deciding, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a soldier. No one sits down and says, you know what, I want to be a crackhead. And I'm going to focus on being a crackhead. That's all I want to do. I want to go to Crackhead University and I'm going to be the best crackhead. Nobody says that. Nobody. I guarantee you I've never met anyone. So you may try experiment and it turns into, I have a good time. I don't have as much anxiety. I'm partying, people accept me. I have a group, I have a community. And then it just keeps on going, and then next thing you know, you're addicted. That's one possibility, or one road. Another road is, like I'll speak for my case, the first time I used the substance, I was in the 3rd grade. I was at a party that my mother had thrown, a Halloween party, and alcohol was everywhere. And they had these little bottles, the little samplers of alcohol. So I'm ducking around between people's legs, and I'm seeing all the adults do everything. They're having fun. I don't know what it is. I'm in 3rd or 4th grade, so I started sneaking. Sips. It's terrible. Thinking maybe, this is a different taste, I was so drunk. So I find my way to my room, and I wound up trying to come back down, and I fall down the stairs. So I tell that whole story just because that was my first exposure to it. So that could have been a predisposition where I started so early, it was now planted. And later on, even as another event, I'm in my mother's car, and one of her friends decides it's a good idea to give me a hit of the bong, of weed. Probably 4th, again, somewhere in that same time. So now I've been introduced to something so early. I have it already in my family history. And then another circumstance down the road, trying to smoke cigarettes, trying to be cool, and it just keeps building. But then I also had trauma. And I'm only a kid. Just to try to give you it's a real complicated picture, but they say one traumatic episode in a child's life. It could be sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional, even moving is considered traumatic because you gotta go to a new school. Just moving alone, I had 26 different addresses before I was 16. I went to roughly 20-something schools, like 2 schools a year. So that alone, 26 different episodes before you're 16. I've had sexual trauma, I've had physical trauma, emotional. So with all of those traumas, the early introduction to it, then later on, again, it's bringing it back in, 19 college days, thinking it's innocent, thinking, I'm not into my trauma. I don't even care about that. Hey, you know, Monday Night Football, everybody else is drinking beer. I don't never drink. All of a sudden, let me try beer. Everybody's having a great time. Now I feel accepted. I used to be the ostracized kid in the sandbox. You know, nobody wanted to be friends with me. Went through that because I'm at a new school every single year, twice a year, sometimes 3. So it was like, oh man, an aha moment. Alcohol is pretty good. Everything is good. So I tell that, sir, that's another person's story, different trauma. I just cut a gentleman, Todd. You know, Todd, I love Todd. I see him out on the street all the time. He jumped into shelter to try to, you know, go into recovery. He's in recovery as well. The trauma that he went through, you know, again, nobody decides to be a crackhead, but you have this trauma, things come, and it winds up self-medicating. Because now I'm not thinking about my trauma. You know, I'm having a good time. I'm feeling like normal, like other human beings, not outside of my body, wondering why all this crap happens to me, and I'm trying to escape it. So it becomes an escape tool. But again, I go back to nobody says I want to be an alcoholic at the age of 5. You know? But there's just different stories why people get there. Now, could I make better choices? Absolutely. I could have, you know, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Absolutely. There's a lot of decisions to it, but how many of us have drank alcohol and then drove? Same crime, same bad thing, but the judgment isn't, or the shame isn't placed on that person, not as much as an addict. Even within the addict community, people who are potheads judge the crackheads or the alcoholics judge the crackheads judge the cocaine, you know, and it goes on and on and on. So when you get to the worst ones, meth and heroin, I say all these things, yeah, they're bad choices, but it's part of bad choices, part of trauma, part of really introduction. There's just so many different facets, kind of, you know, branches to why. So, you know, some people just try it and like it, you know, absolutely. But when you get to the core of it, that's a certain percentage, but that's not a large percentage. But it, you know, everything, like I said, more than one thing can be true at the same time.
Well put. Again, we share certain perspectives. Not that we have to, but we do. So let's move ahead to, again, I appreciate you sharing your story, and you know, I try not to re-traumatize people, so I'm not going to.
No, I'm good. I'm at a space now where I've worked on this. I've been going to behavioral health college over here at Genesee Mental Health. I go 2 days a week, but I used to go 3, 4. And I've been going now 2 years straight, best decision of my life. I've got a lot of education about what I went through in general. I've read a book called The Body Keeps the Score because it was introduced to me by one of the therapists. And that was written by one of the premier or leading doctors in the mental health field. And with research and his experience from 20, 30 years ago, he was the pioneer of a lot of the medications and a lot of the treatments with PTSD and sexual trauma. So, you know, reading that book and going through these, we call it, like I said, behavioral health college. You know, I'm in a good spot. I wouldn't even have said what I just said to you if I wasn't in the spot I was in.
Okay, and that, so you just started answering my question, which I think is going to be my last question, which is, where are you now? And so our community bikes, this behavioral, I'm sorry, what's it called?
It's called Genesee Mental Behavior Health. It's actually called PROS, Personalized Recovery. I forgot the rest of it, but you can get it online. It's PROS and Personalized Recovery, something. Anyways, so it's PROS, Alexander Street, part of Genesee Mental Health or Regional Health in our area, and it's for more intense behavioral health issues because there's mental health and then there's behavioral health.
So really, my question is, where do you feel you are now, and what has helped you? Besides our community bikes and this program, is there anything else that has sort of helped you get to where you are, and where do you need to go?
Oh man, there's so many pieces to this because, you know, I know you said you got certain time constraints, but this problem is you know, if we think about it as a garden, you know, or a tree, it's got so many different things to it that could cause problems or kill it. You know, you gotta take care of the pruning, you gotta take care of the soil, you gotta fertilize. There's all these different things that change, like homeless persons, drug addict, you know, someone with serious mental health issues. one thing that comes to mind is I've been to jail. I've been to substance abuse treatment 3 times. I've been to this mental health services several times, and it's expensive. I think at the shelter, I think they said it's maybe $100 a day or $200 a day or something. Jail is similar. So now I'm in a situation that I have housing that only costs $800-900 a month. So it's much cheaper on the entire economy, on everybody's tax base or bracket, morning, to assist me with that rent, $900 a month, and that is tremendous stabilization. Or $100 a day, which is like $3,000 a month, to send me to all these shelters and do all this and house me in the jails and whatever. And it's just a glaring, I guess, injustice or something that just says, why not do this? You know, steer people to housing and pay only, you save 3 times your money. And also landlords make money. You know, the building owners make money. They pay taxes, so it has a tremendous. You stabilize me. I start spending money in the economy. I get a little bit of change over from DSS, you know, or wherever I may get it if I start working. Now I become a person that's contributing to the local economy versus being someone that takes from. And really, if you really get down to the brass knuckles of it, the landowners pay taxes, right? You own a building, you pay taxes. So if you're paying taxes to the government, why would you want to pay taxes to the government and have them turn around and put us in jail and get us into all these expensive facilities, and then you complain about the people leeching off the system when all you'd have to do is turn around and help us with apartments and you'd get that tax money right back? It's insane. I mean, it for no other language, it's just like, it makes no sense. So, but I'm in a place now where I have an apartment. 70% of it is paid by the Rochester Housing Authority, government organization. So they pay, I don't know, roughly $750, whatever, and then I'm supposed to be paid the 30%, but I'm on DSS assistance now until I get recovered and working and stabilized. They pay the other 30. So a couple $100 a month from DSS. So grand total of $1,000 a month. I have an apartment. I pay the utility bills, which is $44. The little groceries, go to the food kitchens. Can't give me an exact year, but it'll come up. So, anyways, from that point when I really became bad, so now the housing is it. You know what I'm saying? I can go home. I can reset. I can do the dishes. I can, you know what I'm saying? I can get habits that make me more prone or able to come out and take care of all the stuff I have to take care of. You know, that's what housing does. Like, you know, even just getting a drink. When I was homeless, when I was out here in the streets, man, walking around all night, not being able to use the bathroom. I mean, yeah, you could use the bathroom in the bush or something, but it's still that element of, you know, that someone may be in there. I may get stopped by the police. Just realizing I can't go brush my teeth. I can't go get a drink was one of the most hurtful things. It was like, damn. It was the summertime. It was hot. And just walking around all night long. I'm falling asleep walking. I mean, I'm dozing. Break me back up because I almost fall over. So that housing element, I just stress on that about how important, you know, and also part of it too. I know people, like you said, choose not to go into the system because they have their issues with being in the shelters. But there are also people out here though, they just don't trust the system because the system, in a sense, is just full of shit. Because it steers you, you know, it really does into the shelters and willing to pay for that versus my ID. Like, I know I'm jumping around, but I'm just recalling these situations. I needed ID. And, man, they treat you so poorly. I told you, matter of fact, because I lost my ID.
That's right.
I'm running in so many places trying to get all these pieces. There should be some kind of place that says, okay, he's in the shelter. We can verify that. We know who he is because we're paying it, right? They're paying for me to be in the shelter. Can you help me get my ID, please? Same government organizations. And then I can take that ID and give it to the apartment place that needs this stuff to get me the place. But I can't get it for 2 months because I'm running around doing all this crap and I don't even have any money to get the ID. So you gotta pay fees and all. It's just, I don't have Wi-Fi. I gotta go to the library. Library only gives you an hour and a half. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the garden, all these problems. and someone's just trying to take care of one thing, thinking that the rest of the garden or the rest of the tree is going to catch up. It's not. You have to, you know what I'm saying? Like tackle all the different problems. Have some kind of center or some kind of place that allows or helps